This is Ryan Elliott for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. We're down in London today. We're here to discuss, to promote Alexander Usyk against Derek-Chisora, May 23rd. With me, Adam Smith. Adam, it's been a while. Delighted to see you. How are you?
I'm good, Ryan. How are you? I'm obviously trying to survive what's going on out there and the chaos of the world at the moment, and keeping families safe, and listening to government advice, and watching, all of our beloved sports events being postponed and cancelled. And it's difficult times out there, and obviously the most important thing is that everybody is healthy and keeps safe. And for the moment, for us, we try and keep, every day it's business as usual, and until things change, and we listen to advice on all that. But we're here to announce a massive fight. Alexander Usyk and Derek-Chisora is a huge heavyweight fight. Mouth-watering matches at the moment being made. I was out in Vegas for the terrific performance by Tyson Fury over Deontay Wilder. There's a third fight coming there. Anthony Joshua and Kubrat Pulev in the summer. We've got Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce as well, of course. Huge heavyweight nights. Dillian White and Alexander Povetkin, alongside the fantastic women's fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. So a brilliant boxing period. We just hope these things happen, or if they don't happen, then they'll be postponed to safer times when they will. And all we can do is keep plugging away and doing the best we can, and listening to every advice, and dealing with each situation as it arises. And as far as we're concerned, this is a huge fight, and May 23rd in London, if and when it does happen on that day, will be a great fight for heavyweight fans.
As you mentioned, Adam, business as usual, so we'll talk about the boxing, which is why we're here. As you just touched on, Alexander Usyk, Derek-Chisora just concluded the press conference there. What has got people so intrigued about this fight, in your own words?
I think it's because Alexander Usyk has looked so special coming through. We knew him in the amateurs. He's got phenomenal pedigree alongside his great mate Vasily Lomachenko. He ruled the world in the amateurs at heavyweight. He ruled the world as a pro in the cruiserweight division. He beat everyone for the Super Series. He beat Tony Bellew in emphatic fashion. Look, we all want to know how good he is at heavyweight. We've seen Evander Holyfield, David Haye, others come up, being dominant at cruiserweight, and it's a different test at heavyweight. I think people were unconvinced by his first performance at heavyweight against Witherspoon. It was a late change. Obviously, he takes time to bed into the heavyweight division. And I think Derek-Chisora is probably a little annoyed this fight didn't happen at the beginning of the year, where maybe Alexander hasn't had time to develop more into a heavyweight. So the longer it goes on, the more you've got to think he will be, a more of a fully fledged heavyweight. The intrigue in this fight is, we all know, and Derek knows himself, that Alexander Usyk at range could just pick him off and outbox and outclass Derek-Chisora. But Chisora has got the size, the energy, the fitness now under David Haye and Ruben Tabarez and that team, and the fire now at 36, the Indian summer of his career, to give it one last massive crack. And he'll give everything, I think, at the O2. And the intrigue lies to sort of see how Alexander Usyk can deal with a sort of rampaging, high octane, very ferocious Derek-Chisora at heavyweight coming at him. And if he can deal with that and deal with him well, then he's ready for AJ. So it's a really interesting fight, in that it will test Alexander Usyk. It will answer some questions, and it always gives the possibility of a big upset, which we all love to see in the heavyweight division. So, and Derek's a great character, isn't he? He's a cult figure, and I think everybody really admires Alexander Usyk as well. He's become a sort of special component over here in Britain after the sort of Bellew fight, and I think people really respect him. He's got a cheekiness about him. He's got intelligence, humour, a little mystique about him as well, Usyk, and people want to see if he's the real deal and can go on and become a world heavyweight champion. His team believe that. Derek-Chisora says he's got the golden ticket to AJ, so that's what makes it compelling.
No surprise what Derek's going to bring to the party May 23rd. The term kitchen sink comes to mind, but with Alexander, do you think at times he will try and hold his feet himself, though, and maybe trade at times?
Well, that also is another interesting thing. I think he's got to be careful first couple of rounds that he's not swallowed up under the sort of onslaught of Derek-Chisora. But he's going to have to hit him hard and back him up and keep him off him. And I think once tactically he can do that and he can start backing up Derek, then he will have the fight where he wants it. He took time against Tony Bellew, and that was at cruiserweight. Tony had some success in the early rounds, but he's a very clever fighter, Alexander. He'll find the distance, he'll find the right timing, and class normally beats size, so he starts a big favourite going to this. There's no doubt about it. But the intrigue is it's another great clash at heavyweight. It's the story of Derek Chisora. Can it have a fairy tale ending with another world title fight? He had one many years ago against Vitaly Klitschko, and will he get another one? Will the unthinkable happen, and he might actually share a ring with Anthony Joshua, old Finchley stablemates? But you don't think that will probably be likely. You think Alexander Usyk will probably come through and fight Joshua, but Derek and his team are ready for an almighty onslaught, a big upset, and you can't write him off. Even in that second Dillian White fight, he was doing so well until he walked into that big left hook of Dillian's, and then he comes back and he blows away people like Artis Spilka, and he got through David Price. And there's levels in boxing, but the interesting thing is that yes, in terms of skills, Alexander Usyk is a way above Derek Chisora, but in terms of a heavyweight size and the fact that he's new to the heavyweight division, Usyk, it makes it really, really intriguing.
You used the term Indian summer before for Derek, which is probably, I think, a good fit. Derek's someone who's blown hot and cold throughout his career, but when we see him under the lights at the O2, it always seems to bring a bit more out of him. May 23rd, all being well, we'll expect a red-hot atmosphere. Do you think that could give him that little few percent to sort of push on and try and cause that upset?
Oh, certainly. I think Derek, as you said, does blow hot and cold, but I think he embraces the love of the fans. I think this Indian summer he's had under former arch rival David Hayes, a wonderful story in itself. And I think that I'm a big fan of Ruben Tabarez, who's a big part of that camp, and I just have seen so much improvement in Derek Chisora's stamina, fitness. As I said, he's hitting all the targets, and that gives him a real chance, at least in there, of performing brilliantly. He might not beat Usyk, but I think he can really give it a go. I think he'll be highly charged by the crowd. I think the crowd want to see, even if they don't see a Derek win, they want to see Derek give him absolutely everything. Hellfire in there, that brilliant fight he had with Carlos Takam, and he came out of that one when he probably shouldn't have done. But I think that's what people like about Derek. Win or lose, you get real value for money and entertainment. And he's a very honest fighter. And if he gets beat, he'll say that he wasn't good enough. And he's got the opportunity. He's earned that opportunity. I think part of boxing is about the narrative, the characters, the stories. And Derek's provided plenty of that over the years. And we never know whether the table's going to come a cropper or whether the mask will be taken down, and he's an enigma, and we've all been attracted to Derek over the years because of that, for good and bad. He's been a real fantastic part of British boxing, and people like that, and we don't know what Alexander's going to bring to the table in terms of being a world-class heavyweight. He's a world-class cruiserweight, but he's still got to prove himself in the heavyweight division, and he takes this fight before the mandatory at Joshua, so that shows he's confident, shows he probably wants to test himself against a real tough, strong heavyweight before he goes in with Joshua. And there's a lot of people who believe he'll become a world heavyweight champion and one of the greatest to lace them up in the modern generation, and of what we've seen so far, it'd be hard to argue.
If Alexander does come through, Derek, obviously you mentioned there he's got WBO mandatory situation going on. Everyone has been talking about that undisputed fight with Tyson Fury. Should Fury come through Wilder again and Joshua move Pulev to one side? If you're Alexander, are you looking to push that straight away, or do you think there's a temptation to wait and try and secure a fight with an undisputed champion?
That's probably a question for Alexander's team. How long do they want to sort of test the waters at heavyweight? Is this still a bit of a test? It's not a world title fight. He's gone straight in with Kubrat Pulev, Joshua, when he possibly could have had the chance to make that massive undisputed with Tyson Fury. Then Fury had Wilder. It's a political hotbed, and you can't. I know we're not really talking about the coronavirus, and we're trying to keep business as usual, but that could play a massive part in this as well. It could delay things, towards the back end of the year, so the trilogy might not happen quite when we think it will. They talk of July, maybe that will be put back a bit, and maybe it will be 2021 before the big fight between Fury and Anthony Joshua is made, depending on the fact that both come through their fights. And I think June, obviously we hope Joshua and Pulev come through, but Wimbledon's talking about maybe they'll have to cancel. The Euros is under threat. So the most important thing is that that health and safety and people's livelihoods and that's much more important than any fight, any boxing match. And however difficult it is for fighters when they don't know dates and whatever, they'll have to just abide by what the government and the board and everybody else is saying. So it's difficult times. It's uncharted territory, and we have to listen to the advice and keep everybody safe, fighters and fans. So that could all play a role in this. But I think that Alexander will want to get past Chisora and then go straight in with a likes of an anti-Joshua or Tyson Fury. So unless the undisputed and biggest fight probably ever will be made between Fury and AJ, Usyk will try and get in there. And if not, then he'll wait his time and he'll build more as a heavyweight, and then he'll have his crack in probably later in 2021. But first things first, he's got a job to do here. He'll know how hard Chisora is as an opponent. He won't underestimate him. It's not in Usyk's makeup. He'll train as diligently, if not harder than ever. It'll be fascinating to see how he develops as a heavyweight. And it was interesting to see them head-to-head up there, because he didn't look a lot smaller than Chisora, and I think that they've obviously done a lot of work behind the scenes to get him, like Holyfield and Hay did, into a heavyweight body. And it will be really interesting to see what he provides on May the 23rd. Hopefully it is May the 23rd, or whenever the fight happens.
As you know, this will be on Sky Sports pay-per-view. We don't know what the rest of the card's going to look like there, but from what you've heard from Eddie and the other guys as well, what kind of names can we expect? What kind of a card as well?
I think we'll expect other world title fights. I've heard big women's fights as well. I've heard a lot of things, actually. I don't think anything's in stone. And as I said, with the precarious situation out there with the sporting world, today the Premier League delay and tennis is off for 6 weeks, and golf, and there's so much going on out there which is much bigger than any card that we're putting on Sky Sports box office. So we just have to take it step by step. But as and when things will be announced, and we take it day by day. And for the fighters, they're back into training, and fingers crossed, May 23rd is a date that everybody's at the O2 for, and at the moment it will be. But as we know, things are changing on a daily basis, and it's much more important to listen to that advice than it is to worry about our own events.
I appreciate you spoke to Andy quite at length just about a week ago, so just one more thing I want to pick your brains on, Adam, away from this card. Sure. We are expecting a Canelo-Saunders announcement. Whether the moving parts we've got at the minute in the world change that or not, that is what we expect. In your opinion, where does this leave Callum Smith? What kind of fights would you like to see Callum Smith take? People are talking about Ryder, Jacobs, names like that. Where do you think we should see him head next?
He's got huge opportunities, Callum Smith. I mean, if you give me any name to pluck out of a hat, I'd say Chris Eubank Jr. What about that? I mean, I wanted Callum to fight at Anfield. I think if he'd shone against Sean Ryder and he made a real statement against Ryder, I think a lot of the Liverpool people were watching that, and I think we probably would have been at Anfield this summer. I think that will pass, not only because obviously we've got the huge fight at Tottenham Hotspur and the wonderful stadium there, but there's obviously other issues at the minute. Liverpool, my team, on the verge of winning the Premier League, and let's hope that happens. But it's there's a lot more. And I've been speaking to the people at Liverpool. I was there at Anfield last Saturday for the Bournemouth game. They're very keen on bringing boxing to Anfield. So is Eddie. But it might have to wait a year for that. So who knows when that might happen. But in the meantime, Callum has got a number of fights he could take. Daniel Jacobs, as you said, that's a big name. That's great. I'd like to see the Ryder rematch. It was ever so close the first time. The names of Eubank, there's Golovkin, there's Canelo in the future. There's Billy Joe, win or lose against Canelo. There's a load of fights out there for Callum Smith. He's a huge name. He's unbeaten. He's a super middleweight king, and he's got a very, very bright future. So looking forward to seeing where we go with him. And obviously, if Billy Joe does get the Canelo fight, which looks likely, whether it will be May the 2nd, as we've talked about, we don't know. But he's worked hard for that fight, and he's going to give Canelo a lot to think about. He's a very, very good fighter with a very difficult style, an awkward style, and it's going to be tough out in Vegas. Maybe it doesn't happen Cinco de Mayo and it happens on another day, maybe in another place. Maybe that will help Billy Joe a little bit. I don't know, because it's going to be a tough getting decision in Vegas against Canelo. But Billy Joe will give it absolutely everything. He's with a wonderful trainer in Ben Davison. He's a great fighter, and I like the fact he's been given the opportunity. And fingers crossed it happens on that day.
Adam, thank you very much for your time as always. We'll catch you very soon.